Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Happy New Year. We've got a pleasant holiday. I'll call the meeting to order. Sandra, you want to call the roll, please?
Of course, Mr. Chair. Superintendent Choudhury.
Present.
Courtney League as designee for DGS.
Present.
Mr. Derenberg is absent. Ms. Eberhardt is present. Mr. Gibbons is absent. Ms. Lala is present. Valdez Lavins as designee for MDP.
Present.
And Chair Casemeyer.
Thank you. Here. Any revisions to the agenda? I don't think so. You have any public comment, Cassandra?
No, Mr. Chair.
Correspondence. Alex, you want to talk about that?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. There are two items of correspondence this month. The first is a letter to Governor-elect Wes Moore from the Maryland Association of Boards of Education and the Public Schools Superintendents Association of Maryland. This letter is included in our agenda as correspondence pages 1 through 4. The letter touches upon a couple of issues that are likely to pertain to the work of the IAC. So at the next month's IAC meeting, the staff will fully describe these issues and answer any questions the commission may have at that time. The second is your own letter to former...
Everybody read that letter? It's got some interesting comments in it. It's good to read. We'll talk about it next month. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. The second letter is your own letter to former IAC member Dick Lombardo, who recently stepped down from the commission.
Okay. The consent agenda. Alex, you want to go through that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This month, items 1A through E include administrative items that include last month's minutes, contracts, revisions to previously approved contracts, and 2 site approvals. None this month are remarkable in my view, but certainly happy to stand for any questions you might have. And also item 1F is the monthly Built to Learn project status report. It does not include new additions, just simply shows currently the incremental updates to project progress.
Does anyone have any questions on the consent agenda items? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second, Ms. Eberhardt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Item 2, adoption of final COMAR revisions. Jonathan Borghetti and Cassandra.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commission members.
Good morning.
On August 11th, 2022, the IAC approved COMAR revisions to Regulation 1439-0206. These revisions were to codify changes in statute by 2022 Maryland Law, Chapter 32. The revisions, as shown on page 62 of the agenda, were published in the November 4th, 2022 Maryland Register. The revisions were open for a period of 30 days for public comment. We did not receive any public comment on this item. If approved, the final notice will be published in the Maryland Register and the regulations will go into effect 10 days after publication. We can now stand for questions and to read the motion.
Why don't you read the motion first and we'll do some questions.
Okay. The motion is to adopt final COMAR revisions as published in the November 4th, 2022 Maryland Register.
Any questions about what this is? Do I hear a motion to that effect that Jonathan just mentioned? Ms. Eberhardt, second. Ms. Lala.
Second.
Any more discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Item 3, Healthy School Facility Fund, FY 2023 extension request, Arabia.
Oh,
Are you doing this, Arabia?
I am, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commission
Good morning.
members. The IAC allocates school construction funding through the Healthy Schools Facility Fund to mitigate environmental risk within school buildings. To bring the Healthy Schools Facility Fund Administrative Procedures Guide in compliance with the state finance and procurement article, staff are recommending a revision to decrease the threshold for prevailing wage rates from $500,000 to $250,000 applicable to state-funded projects. The final revision of the procedures pertain to the extension of the application schedule for Baltimore City Public Schools from November 30th, 2022 to February 28th, 2023. This change, requested by Baltimore City on December 21st, provides the LEA a sufficient amount of time to review their heating, ventilation, and air conditioning needs to meet the permissible use of the remaining federal ARPA funds. I'm going to turn it over to Griselle, the Regional Facility Manager for Baltimore City, to provide additional background information. Griselle?
Thank you, Arabia. Good morning, Chair, Kaismeier members.
Morning.
Baltimore City Public Schools submitted a total of 28 projects consisting of roofs and windows replacements for their FY23 Healthy Schools Facility Fund submission. The FY23 Healthy Schools funding allocation allocated in the budget bill came from two sources: the $50 million from the Go bonds and the additional $40 million from federal ARPA funds. The law requires that Baltimore City receive half of the available funding from Healthy Schools and that their projects be allocated through a separate application process. Consistent with this law, IAC staff have held half of each available funding source for Baltimore City. The budget bill restricted the use of the ARPA funding beyond the IAC's procedures for the program, allowing these funds to only be used for HVAC projects. While Baltimore City submitted a number of projects, they did not submit any HVAC projects that could have used the available ARPA funds. We've been working closely with City, and they believe that they can submit a number of additional projects in order to use the available funding, but will need an extension from the original published schedule in order to do so. There is no financial or statutory reason as to why an extension cannot be granted, and thus IAC staff recommend approval of this request.
You want to read the motion, please?
Yeah, I could reread it. The motion is to approve the revisions to the Healthy School Facility Fund Administrative Procedures Guide as shown in the presented draft document.
Any questions about this? Alex, is there anything to know about this?
Oh, this is essentially administrative. Thank you.
Okay. Hear a motion to that effect that Griselle read. Mr. Gibbons makes a motion. Ms. Lawler seconds. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, let's move to item 4.
Okay. As we
Baltimore City
mentioned,
Public Schools, Arabia. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yes. As we mentioned in the previous item, Baltimore City Public Schools is required by law to receive at least 50% of the funding appropriated for the Healthy Schools Facility Fund program through an application process separate from other Maryland jurisdictions. For fiscal year 2024, $45 million has been reserved for Baltimore City. Today's recommendations utilizes the $25 million in new authorization. The proposed approvals are based on the prioritization of the project categories as outlined in the Administrative Procedures Guide and staff's examination of funding requests and supporting documentation. Due to stipulations in regards to the use of the $20 million in federal funds, and because of the extension you just approved in item 3, additional projects are expected to be submitted in February. Griselle is available to answer any additional questions you might have about specific project applications submitted by Baltimore City. And the
Thank you.
motion, you're welcome.
Go ahead.
The motion is to approve fiscal year 2023 Healthy School Facility Fund project allocations for Baltimore City Public Schools totaling $25 million in new authorization as presented in Table 1.
Any questions for Arabia or Griselle? Do I hear a motion on that Arabia made? Ms. Eberhardt, second. Mr. League, thank you. Any more discussion on this motion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 5, use of bond proceeds for capital improvements in leased public school buildings. It's a very interesting one. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is an introduction to a topic that will return for further discussion at the Commission's upcoming February meeting. As you know, following recommendations by the Kirwan Commission, the General Assembly enacted last year the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. The legislation specifies requirements for pre-K-12 education that involve modifications or additions to certain programs and services provided by each of Maryland's LEAs. Some of these include expanded pre-kindergarten and career technology education programs, among others, which may in some cases require new facility space beyond what currently exists in some LEAs' facilities portfolios. A number of LEAs have contacted IAC staff over the past few months to express concern that they do not foresee all of the needed facility spaces becoming available or being able to be purchased within their jurisdictions. These LEAs have projected that they may only be able to acquire the needed facility spaces in the right locations by leasing facilities from private owners and then reconfiguring or renovating those facilities to serve as educational facilities. To date, the IAC has not allocated bond-sourced state school construction funds to capital improvements in privately owned facilities, but other state agencies have done precisely that when certain conditions have been satisfied. IAC staff believe that a policy can be formulated that would address the needs facing a number of Maryland's LEAs and would protect the state's interests in the efficient and effective deployment of state capital dollars. Advice received from state legal and bond counsel and other preliminary research by IAC staff suggests that viable policy options can be quickly formulated for the IAC's consideration. In light of this, I'm prepared to offer for consideration today a motion that the Commission direct staff to develop a draft policy and present it to the Commission in an upcoming meeting for its review and approval. I can read that brief motion now or stand for questions as desired.
Any questions on Alex's comments before he makes a motion? Ms. Everhart, you're on mute. You're on mute, Linda.
Sorry. Okay. Just a comment. We have 30-some charter schools in Baltimore City, public charter schools. Several of them are in leased buildings. Would this have the same criteria just like regular schools? So if they use bond money, there is a certain amount of time that it has to be, it decreases the amount that the school is obligated to pay back. So if the school would go out of business within 2 years, but they borrowed bond money for 15 years for the facility, will you be looking at the same kind of arrangement that is now done with regular bond money for city or for any school? Do you understand my question?
Yes, Ms. Eberhard, thank you. I can't say specifically what the answer might be because we're looking at different options and what the bond council requirements might be. But we are looking at that specific component, absolutely, and looking at how to help charter schools be included in this eligibility. So it's definitely something that we're taking into account fully. And yes, next month, we'd like to bring some details to the Commission for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Alex, does this grow out of the letter we received in terms of the pre-K requirements?
Not directly, but it is somewhat related in that it is an issue that is popping up for a number of LEAs with regard to pre-kindergarten, particularly and possibly CTE and other components of program service delivery. But it is definitely a growing issue and concern, particularly for those LEAs whose where the sort of the landscape does not offer any more sites that could be converted to school use through just purchasing and conversion into schools.
I see a hand on Mr. Boyd. Do you have a question, Mr. Boyd?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to raise my hand. I apologize. I didn't realize I had.
That's okay. I just saw it and didn't want to ignore it. Okay, Alex, do you want to read the motion, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. The motion is to direct staff to develop a policy for the use of certain bond proceeds, including capital improvement program funds and pass-through grant funds, for capital improvements requested by local education agencies in facilities that are leased to local education agencies or charter school operators for use as public schools. Staff will present the policy to the commission in a subsequent meeting for review and approval as a commission policy.
Someone like to make that motion, please? Ms. Everhart, second. Mr. Gibbons. Any more discussion on this issue? It's very interesting. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? No one. Okay, thank you, Alex. We've got a couple announcements. Does anyone want to bring anything up before we get to the announcements? Okay, Alex, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, one announcement. It is my pleasure to announce to the Commission the hiring of Ms. Melissa Wilfong to fill the IAC's vacant position of Senior Regional Facilities Manager and to introduce Melissa to you. Melissa joined the IAC staff yesterday after more than 2 decades of service as an architect designing pre-K-12 schools in Maryland with one of the most respected school design firms in the state. Melissa brings a wealth of experience helping solve the facilities challenges that face Maryland's LEAs and many positive relationships with Maryland LEAs and stakeholders. I know that she will contribute powerfully to the work of the IAC. Melissa, not to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to make any brief comments, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I think I'm still sorting out IT because my camera's not working, but my gray square is there. So I'm really happy to be here, excited to dig in Cassandra's words and start contributing. So thank you all.
Welcome, Melissa. We wish you the best.
Thanks so much.
Glad we have you. Alex, do you want to touch on that historic preservation issue a little bit and tell the board about our plans?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Thank you. For the last 10 years, the IAC has had a working agreement with the Maryland Historic Trust to assist in ensuring that state historic preservation processes and regulations are adhered to when it comes to school construction projects. That agreement expires in the next month, and Historic Trust reached out to the IAC to discuss renewal. Because the agreement is literally 10 years old and has not been really touched for a decade, Historic Trust recommended that we go through the agreement together and negotiate any needed adjustments, amendments, modernizations to it to take into account changing, laws, regulations, circumstances in the intervening decade. We agree, but we also don't want the agreement to lapse prior to renewal and have a gap without any agreement in place. And so we are going to bring to the IAC next month a request to come up with an extension that will allow us to renegotiate while continuing to partner with Historic Trust on all applicable projects. And so this will we'll brief you on this topic next month and work out an extension so that we can renegotiate and continue this partnership. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
So has this relationship come forth in terms of need for it with previous projects over the years where we've needed their approval? Or
so yes, so far I'm aware of no issues or challenges with the working relationship with Historic Trust. Projects have been the projects that are subject to historic preservation regulations have been properly treated under those regulations, and the IAC has essentially played a role of ensuring that that does happen with each project and coordinating with the LEAs and Historic Trust. It's really a facilitative relationship and has not given rise to any, I would say, cases of concern or issue. But this is just simply part of the kind of interagency working structure that we have been maintaining for a decade, and we like to continue that. We just want to make sure that we get the details up to date because what's in place has been there literally unchanged for a decade.
Okay. Ms. Eberhardt.
Could you get us a list, Alex, of all the buildings, all the school buildings that are under this historic trust preservation right now, currently?
Do you mean all buildings statewide, school buildings, or just the ones that are projects at the moment?
If it would be easy just to be able to say how many we have in each county, or is it, is it a lot? Is it in Baltimore City, I would think it would be Booker T. Washington, the middle school, Thurgood Marshall. I'm just not sure where they are, what
Certainly.
they are, how many we're talking about. So if next month maybe, or sometime in the future.
Yes, happy to do that. I'm sure that's something we can get for next month. I don't think that it's a huge number, but obviously whenever a project comes up for one of those schools, we do make sure that the right conversations are happening between the LEA and Historic Trust.
That way we'll have just some kind of sense of the magnitude.
Absolutely.
Of what we're doing. Thank you.
Certainly.
Mr. League.
Not really a question, just a comment for Alex and an offer. We work with MHC on quite a few historic renovations throughout the state on a regular basis, so we'd be happy to take a look at the agreement, from another perspective, just if you care for us to do so.
Excellent. Thank you, Courtney, and appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Follow up afterwards with you.
Perfect.
Just to let you know that Cassandra and Alex and I have appointments with the president, the speaker, and the treasurer. And Alex has requested a meeting with the governor, although we haven't heard back in terms of a specific date yet. So I'm glad we're doing that. Anything else anyone wants to bring up? Okay. Good to see you all. And do I hear a motion that we adjourn? Ms. Eberhardt and Ms. Law seconds it. All in favor, say aye. Good to see you. Short meeting. Take care. See you next month. Bye-bye.